The day was everything John had dreamed of.
The day was everything John had dreamed of, bright, beautiful, and brimming with joy. The sun shone through the grand windows of the church, casting golden beams across the gathered guests. Rosina, in her immaculate white gown, stood at the altar, radiating grace and elegance. For a moment, everything felt suspended in time, as though the world had paused just for them. Their families, their friends, everyone was there to witness this new chapter in their lives, the beginning of forever. John's heart swelled with love and excitement as he gazed at Rosina, the woman he believed was his soul mate. From the vows to the heartfelt toasts, the day seemed like something out of a fairy tale. Rosina's smile was everything John had ever wanted. In her eyes, he saw the promise of a life filled with shared dreams, mutual respect, and unwavering loyalty. They were the perfect couple, or so it seemed. As they exchanged rings, John thought of their future together, the family they would build, the years ahead full of laughter and love. There was no doubt in his mind. This day, this moment, was the beginning of a beautiful forever. What he didn't know was that the seeds of betrayal had already been sown just before the vows were even spoken. Months passed after the wedding, and life seemed to settle into a comfortable routine for John and Rosina. At first, it was blissful, late-night conversations, shared meals, and dreams of a future together. But slowly, John began noticing small but unsettling changes in Rosina's behavior. She became more distant, less affectionate. Their conversations seemed to lose their warmth, replaced by cold silences. It wasn't anything overt, just subtle shift in tone, a glance that lingered too long on her phone, a hesitation in her words. The unease in John's heart grew, but he tried to ignore it. He trusted Rosina, the woman he had promised to love for the rest of his life. Yet, doubt had begun to creep in, as if someone had opened a small crack in the foundation of his trust. And no matter how much he tried to ignore it, that crack widened with each passing day. Then, the tipping point came during a quiet dinner with friends. A casual remark, an offhand comment about Rosina's past. Something that seemed innocent enough at first, triggered a storm of doubt in John's mind. Was she hiding something? Why had she seemed so secretive lately? He couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something was terribly wrong. Late that night, unable to silence his suspicions any longer, John made a decision. He would ask for a DNA test. It was an unthinkable step, but something in him told him he needed the truth. As Rosina slept beside him, he wondered if this simple test would shatter everything he had believed in. John stared at the envelope in his hands, his fingers trembling despite his best efforts to remain composed. The days since he had sent off the DNA test had dragged on like an eternity, each moment weighed down by the suffocating silence between him and Rosina. She had no idea what he had done. She had no idea what was coming. And yet, deep down, John felt the gnawing certainty that whatever was inside this envelope would change everything. He tore it open, his eyes scanning the bold print on the results sheet. His heart hammered in his chest, each beat seeming to echo in his ears. He read the words over and over, unwilling to believe them. But they were undeniable. The child is not his. The shock hit him like a physical blow. For a moment, he could hardly breathe, his thoughts scrambling, unable to process the enormity of what he had just learned. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a brutal, cold truth that shattered the very foundation of his life. The child he had been raising with such love and care, the child he believed was his own flesh and blood, was not his at all. He sank into the nearest chair, the world around him blurring into a haze of disbelief. His mind flashed back to the wedding day. The vows, the promises, the joy in Rosina's eyes as they pledged their lives to each other. How could this have happened? Was it possible that Rosina had cheated on him before they even said, "I do"? The weight of the revelation crushed him. Anger surged within him, but it was tempered by a profound sadness. Rosina had betrayed him. Not only had she deceived him, but she had taken away the one thing he had always believed in, the sanctity of their marriage. The shock of the DNA test results didn't fade. It festered, consuming John with each passing hour. But amidst the pain, something else grew, a quiet, calculating rage. He couldn't simply walk away and forget what had been done to him. His mind swirled with thoughts of vengeance. Not just any revenge, but something so calculated, so devastating, that would ensure Rosina felt the weight of her betrayal for the rest of her life. John wasn't impulsive. He wasn't the type to act out of raw emotion, though the anger burned in his veins. No, he would plan this carefully, like a chess master setting up the perfect play. Rosina had humiliated him, shattered the trust they'd built, and now he would make sure she paid the price. It wouldn't be with shouting or violence. It would be something far colder, more methodical. He would destroy her life, piece by piece, and watch as everything she had built crumbled to dust. The first step was simple but effective: isolation. John began quietly moving his financial assets, draining their joint accounts, and leaving her with little access to the wealth she had relied on. He opened separate bank accounts, making sure Rosina couldn't access them. She had always assumed they were in this together, but now he would pull away from her in ways she couldn't see coming. Next, he set his sights on her public image. Rosina had always prided herself on her reputation. Among her friends, colleagues, and even her family, John would shatter that image. He contacted a private investigator who dug into Rosina's past, finding the other man she had cheated with. A little digging revealed everything. The affair had started well before the wedding, and Rosina had been lying about it all along. John's revenge wasn't just going to be personal. It was going to be public, a spectacle that would leave Rosina with no place to hide. He felt a strange sense of power, knowing that every step of this plan was designed to bring her to her knees. The day John had been quietly preparing for arrived, and with it, the first wave of his calculated revenge. He had spent weeks carefully orchestrating every move. Now, it was time to watch everything unfold. The first step was financial. Late one afternoon, he transferred large sums from their shared savings account, moving the money into accounts that Rosina had no access to. He even made sure to leave a few transactions for her to notice, ensuring she'd find out gradually. Her sense of security would be the first casualty. Next, John turned his attention to Rosina's reputation. He had already secured all the evidence he needed: photos, texts, and damning conversations between Rosina and the man she betrayed him with, Mark, a mutual friend, someone John had once trusted. John knew that her professional world would be just as affected as her personal one. He began quietly contacting colleagues and friends, slipping the truth into their conversations, letting them know that Rosina wasn't the woman they thought she was. Then came the social media posts. Using an anonymous account, John carefully crafted a series of explosive revelations about Rosina's affair, making sure to include incriminating photos and text messages between Rosina and Mark. He timed them perfectly. Each post was strategically released, each more damning than the last. The post went viral within hours. The public's reaction was swift and unforgiving. People she'd known for years turned on her, unfriended her, and shared the post with a kind of vicious excitement. Within days, Rosina's world began to crumble. Her family, once her unwavering support system, confronted her, disgusted by the betrayal. Her colleagues distanced themselves, some even avoiding eye contact. The man she had cheated with, Mark, soon disappeared from her life, unwilling to face the fallout of his own actions. As John watched from the sidelines, detached and emotionless, he felt a strange satisfaction. Rosina had no one left to lean on. She had lost everything. And as for John, he was done. He had exacted his revenge, and it was more complete than he ever imagined. Days had passed since Rosina's life began to unravel. The messages, the social media firestorm, the whispers in every corner of her world. Nothing had been left untouched. Rosina, once the picture of confidence, now seemed like a ghost of the woman she had been. She could no longer ignore the magnitude of what she had done. The public shaming, the loss of friends, and the searing betrayal of her own family had broken her. And now, Rosina had come to face John. It was late one evening when she knocked on his door. Her face, once full of grace, was now pale, streaked with mascara and traces of sleepless nights. She stood there, broken, desperate, her eyes pleading for something, anything, that might restore what she had destroyed. "John," she whispered, voice shaky, "I never meant for any of this to happen. It was a mistake. I was lost. Please, John's gaze was cold, steady. The anger inside him had already been spent, replaced by an unsettling calm. He didn't interrupt her, didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing his pain. Instead, he looked at her with an icy detachment that made her feel smaller with each passing second. "Do you really think this was just a mistake?" he asked quietly. "You destroyed everything. Not just me. Rosina, you destroyed us. You destroyed yourself." Her eyes filled with tears, but John wasn't moved. He had no sympathy left. His heart had already closed off to her long ago. "This is the consequence of your betrayal," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet cutting deeper than any shout could. "I'm done. There's nothing left to fix." Rosina's life, once filled with promise and the comfort of her perfect facade, had been shattered beyond repair. The fallout from her affair spread like wildfire, consuming everything in its path. She lost friends, colleagues, and even her family. Her name became synonymous with betrayal, and there was no escaping it. No amount of apologies could undo the damage. She was left to face the harsh reality of her actions, alone and broken. John, however, had moved on. The anger that once consumed him had faded into a quiet sense of closure. Watching Rosina unravel had brought no true satisfaction, just a bitter reminder of how far betrayal could go. The revenge he had carefully crafted had served its purpose, but it had also shown in the emptiness of vengeance. In the end, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about reclaiming his life, his dignity, and his peace of mind. As for Rosina, she was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered existence. Her past had caught up with her, and there was no way to turn back time. What she had once thought was a momentary lapse of judgment had become the destruction of everything she held dear. And John, free of her lies, walked away, knowing that healing would come not from revenge, but from letting go,